Welcome to this explainer. Look, we're going to dive straight in today because your job security might just depend on decisions being made an ocean away. So let's get to it.
Look at this breakdown right out of the gate. A massive chunk of high-value jobs here in Ireland, we're talking tech, pharma, finance, manufacturing, they are tethered directly to U.S. multinationals. What that means on the ground is that your pay packet, and really the broader health of our local economy, relies heavily on the States. The whole structure of our job market is deeply tied up with these global players.
Section 1. The local job illusion.
You know, we often think our job security is all about our local performance. But as this quote highlights, one of the biggest influences on jobs in Ireland doesn't actually originate here at all. Policy decisions made by Donald Trump, specifically his intense focus on domestic U.S. investment, act as this massive, impartial economic mechanism that quietly shifts the Irish market. These multinationals, they respond to global policy. And when those incentives shift across the Atlantic, the risk starts building for us right here at home.
Section 2. The boardroom versus the family. This brilliantly illustrates the divide we're dealing with. On one side, U.S. employers in the boardroom are purely focused on things like tax, regulation, and market access. But on the other side, the Irish working family is looking at keeping their job secure, paying the mortgage, updating the CV, and putting food on the table. So, when U.S. policy incentivizes their own domestic growth, the boardroom naturally protects itself and adjusts. The Irish family, meanwhile, well, we're the ones who have to absorb the knock-on effect.
So the absolute crucial point here is that these companies aren't necessarily packing up and leaving Ireland overnight. It's not that dramatic, but they are choosing to grow elsewhere, and job markets, they thrive on growth. If new roles are suddenly being created in the US instead of here, it halts our momentum fairly sharpish. Over time, that completely alters the trajectory of the Irish job market.
Section 3. The silent hiring squeeze. Now, what's really interesting here is how we can track this threat creeping in without making a sound. When people think of job risk, they expect sudden layoffs, major announcements on the evening news, or immediate factory closures. But the reality is much stealthier. The real damage is the jobs that aren't created in the first place, the promotions that simply don't happen, and this cautious internal restructuring where teams are quietly moved to more attractive locations. It's much harder to spot, but it is every bit as damaging. Let's look at how this builds sequentially. Step 1. A policy shift in the States creates uncertainty. Step 2. Companies get cautious and delay their expansion plans. Step 3. This cascades right down into hiring freezes here at home. And finally, Step 4, you end up with less mobility and stalled career progression for Irish workers. You might still have your job, sure, but your path forward suddenly hits a brick wall.
Section 4. The global competition trap. We have to remember that Ireland isn't operating in a vacuum. We are in a fierce race for global capital. If U.S. policy changes the global balance by heavily encouraging domestic hiring over there, Ireland has to compete much, much harder. Other nations are constantly improving their offerings too. Take the tech sector, for example. It pays well, it drives massive economic activity, and it supports local shops and services. If the hiring momentum shifts back to the US, we might not see a cliff-edge decline, but we will absolutely see reduced momentum dictating where the big money flows.
Funnily enough, gradual shifts in incentives and investment often reshape entire economies far more than sudden, explosive events. It's a quiet phenomenon. These changes build up silently over the years, driven by background investment incentives, long before the structural shift becomes completely obvious to the average worker going about their day.
Section 5. The squeeze on pay packets.
Let's examine how this quiet shift directly hits your wallet. As this chart demonstrates, job growth and wages are intimately linked. When job creation stagnates because of cautious global boardrooms, the competition for existing roles right here skyrockets. And when competition goes up, wage growth slows right down. So even if you're lucky enough to keep your current job, your income might not grow as quickly as you'd hoped. That puts a really harsh squeeze on your household finances, especially when you're just trying to keep up with the cost of living.
Section 6. Preparing for the shift. So knowing all this, how does the Irish working family actually prepare so everything remains grand? Well, you need to pay close attention to the early signals. Broaden your view of job security. It's no longer just about how well you do your job, it's about whether your global company is still investing in your region. You have to recognize that global trends dictate your local opportunities. Keep an eye out for those subtle industry shifts and quiet internal restructurings, because those things change long before the real damage lands on your doorstep.
I want to leave you with this absolutely crucial takeaway from our explainer today. The biggest risk is not always what disappears. It's what stops growing. It's this invisible loss of momentum that poses the most insidious threat to our local job market. It's not the sudden factory closure that gets everyone talking. It's the quiet decision made thousands of miles away to hire 500 people in the US instead of in Ireland.
If your career relies on decisions made in US boardrooms, how secure is your future when their policies shift? It's a very sobering question that we all need to be asking ourselves right now. How secure are you really when the wind changes direction across the Atlantic? Now, this isn't a prediction of doom, but a necessary recognition of our exposure. And honestly, it tees up our next explainer perfectly, where we'll be examining the sheer undeniable scale of Ireland's overall reliance on the US. Thanks for joining me, and keep your eyes on those global trends.